Mr. Piper's Bus by Eleanor Clymer. Chapter 4 A Good Home for Buster. A loud voice woke Mr. Piper. Cock-a-doodle-doo! He sat up and tried to jump up out of bed. But where was he? Instead of a floor underneath his feet, there was grass and pebbles. Instead of a ceiling overhead, there were leafy branches. Instead of an alarm clock ringing, there was a little rooster up in a tree. Moo, said another voice nearby. A brown cow was staring at Mr. Piper with big dark eyes. Buster jumped up and began to bark. Mr. Piper said, "Be quiet, Buster, that's a cow." Then he explained to the cow, "Buster is a city dog. He never saw a cow before. Where did you come from?" "Moo," said the cow again. Mr. Piper could see that her bag was big and full. He didn't know how much he didn't he did not know much about cows either, but he thought she wanted to be milked. "Well, I don't know how to milk you," he said. "Why don't you go home where you belong?" "Moo," said the cow. Mr. Piper put on his shoes and walked up a little hill in the middle of the field. From there he could see a farm down on the other side. "That must be where you live," he said to the cow. And he didn't know how to get her to go there. Suddenly, Buster began to bark. Woof, woof. He ran at the cow and nipped her. It wasn't a hard nip, but the cow began to move toward the farm. "Why, Buster," exclaimed Mr. Piper, "how smart you are. I didn't know you could drive cows." The cow walked down the hill to the barnyard with Buster after her. Mr. Piper followed. "Is this your cow?" he asked the farmer who came out of the barn. "Why, yes, she is," answered the farmer. "Thanks for bringing her back. Where did you find her?" "I camped over the hill last night," Mr. Piper told him. "She came around this morning to see what we were doing. I saw your farm, so my dog and I brought her here." "Thanks a lot," said the farmer. "Would you like some fresh milk?" Mr. Piper was glad to have the milk. It was still warm and smelled good. Everything about the farm seemed good. It looked so peaceful and busy. The chickens clucked in the yard. The pigs grunted. The ducks waggled their tails as they swam in the pond. A cat came out of the barn, followed by 2 kittens. But there did not seem to be any dog. Suddenly, Mr. Piper had an idea. This might be the right place for Buster. He hadn't planned to give Buster away so soon, but it did seem like a good chance. "Would you like to have a dog?" he asked. "I'm looking for a home for Buster." The farmer seemed surprised, but said, "Why, yes, I do need a dog. I don't have a dog right now. As a matter of fact, I've been looking for one." "Of course, Buster is a city dog," said Mr. Piper, "but he does seem to be smart." "Oh, he's smart all right," said the farmer. "I saw the way he drove the cow down here. He could be trained very easily." Buster knew they were talking about him. He wagged his tail proudly and said, "Woof." "All right," said the farmer, patting Buster. "I'll take him. If you're sure you want to give him away." "I don't want to," said Mr. Piper, "but I have to. I live in the city and I can't keep him there." The farmer nodded. He called to his wife, "Here's a new dog. Will you please take him inside and feed him? His name is Buster." "Here, Buster," called the farmer's wife. Buster ran happily to the kitchen door. Mr. Piper watched him go inside, then he turned away. "Take good care of him," he called over his shoulder. He hurried to his bus. He put Little Mac, Mrs. Cat, and the kittens and all their things inside as fast as he could. Then he started the motor. He wanted to get away before Buster noticed that he was gone. "Meow," said Mrs. Cat. She ran up and down the aisle looking on all the seats. "Meow," she said again. "Are you looking for Buster? I found him a good home. He is going to be very, very happy there." "Don't worry about him," said Mr. Piper, as he stared at the road and pressed his foot hard on the gas pedal. But he couldn't help worrying himself. No Buster, no little dog to lick his face in the morning and jump for joy when he came home at night. And what would Buster think when he found Mr. Piper gone? He'd think his master didn't love him anymore. Mr. Piper felt so badly that he wanted to stop at the bus and blow his nose. He was just giving the one last blow when he looked up into the rearview mirror. Far back on the road, he saw a small cloud of dust. It was coming nearer. What could it be? Something was running on the road. He started the bus. "I won't look," he thought as he drove ahead, but he couldn't help looking. Now it was not just a cloud of dust. It was a small brown spot. It was a dog running as fast as it could with tongue hanging out and ears flapping. It was Buster. Mr. Piper stopped the bus again. Buster galloped up. He leaped up the steps and jumped into Mr. Piper's lap. He licked his face all over and sang through his nose with joy. "Hooray, I found you," he seemed to be saying. "You got lost, but don't worry. I will always find you." He wiggled and waggled until he fell on the floor. He jumped right up again. "My, I was scared," he seemed to say. "I thought I'd have to stay on that farm forever." "What would the farmer think?" asked Mr. Piper. Buster didn't seem to care what the farmer would think. He licked Mr. Piper's face again. "Woof! Stop that and listen to me," said Mr. Piper. "Yip, yip," yelped Buster. Mrs. Cat came running up and licked his nose. "You be more careful next time. We almost went off without you," she seemed to be telling him. Mr. Piper sighed. "The way you chased that cow, I thought you'd be happy on the farm, but maybe you're a city dog after all. Very well, I'll take you back and find you a home in the city." That was chapter 4.